how come right now, in your experience, even though this person or this situation isn't happening anymore and it's not around right now, but you're still feeling this chaos? Can you tap in? Can you transcend that right now? Can you overcome it where you are? Can you find a deep sense of peace and contentment and comfort right now where you are? Okay, so I'm going to get at what we're doing right now is getting at how to approach this, how to stop this from happening for yourself. People think they lose themselves when other people are around. That's because of a perception. You don't ever actually lose yourself. You can't. If you can connect with a place right now in yourself that is totally at peace, totally content with you, at peace in the present moment, and at peace with the present moment and everything that's happening in it. There might be a little bit of discomfort in the body. There might be a little bit of pain, whatever. Can you be at peace with this happening right now? And not expect it to be any other way, just watching it. Okay, hang out with the void. Void is fine, by the way. People often get scared of that. They get scared of a void. They think, I don't know, they associate it with bad or that it's not supposed to be that way. It's fine. I hang out in the void constantly. It's very peaceful in the void. Now, what we need to learn to identify is well, first of all, we have to identify the peace of voidness. By the way, that was a fundamental teaching from the Buddha when he was trying to help people to know the nature of enlightenment, actually, and to know the path towards cultivating a true awakening, the spiritual awakening. But that's a bit of a side note. Anyway, if we can get very, very, very familiar with this void without deviating from it, without trying to fill it up, without trying to change it, just being present, what we eventually learn how to do is bring the whole universe into the void with us, and to bring everyone into the void with us. Most people who come into contact with the peace and tranquility of presence, which is where the void is, by the way, they think, and this is only a perception, this isn't actually what's happening, but because when other people come into their sphere, that means immediate awareness of their environment, and people tend to bring along with them all of their conditioning and their programming and their ego. And then we deviate from the void, we deviate into that person's ego, and we get consumed by the thinking and their perceptions and their attacks or not attacks and their thoughts and words. And people often think that, okay, now I've lost myself in that. I've lost the void. I had peace of mind and I was tranquil, and now I've lost it because that person comes and attacks me and gives me all of their shit. When actually the void is behind all of that. It's still there. When a person is in front of me, talking to me, I can either enter into their psychology and act like what they're talking about is real and play along with it and go along with it, or I can take my attention off of that and bring my attention straight back into my own void, if you want to call it that. That means I can bring that person into the void with me, and I have no idea what they're talking about. If I do that though, I won't understand a word they're saying because their words are actually void. They're void of all meaning. They're just making noises at me with their mouth, you know? That's not in most circumstances, you won't maintain relationships with people for very long if you do that, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Especially if people are barking viciously at you, for example, or they're just talking about shit that you don't want to get caught up in. Shit that if you know yourself so well that if you allow yourself to deviate into what that person is talking about, it's going to confuse the crap out of you and you're going to feel shit. You're going to take on board a whole heap of crap. And so you tend to sit in the void more often when those people come around. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You will have a lot more peace in your life if you learn to govern those particular interactions that way. So this means I don't have to be afraid of anyone. I have the void. It's like a superpower. Okay, that person's here again with all of their chaos. And here I am just hanging out in the void. I'm under no obligation to respond to them or to care about what they're thinking. Actually, I don't have to. I can if I want to, but if I don't want to, I don't have to. I've learned to hang out in the void, and I've learned to be able to hang out in the void under all circumstances, should I so desire. But to get established in that space often requires a training. You have to cultivate the ability to do that, because most of us are conditioned to go along with everyone that comes along. Usually through fear or anxiety or guilt. We've been conditioned to think that we have to listen to what everyone says or to care about what everyone thinks. But sometimes we deviate from the void because of our own shit. I want that person to hear me. I want that person's approval. I want that person to like me. I want that person to follow me. I want to be the boss. When you're connected to that space, you're in deep presence. And so when you communicate with people from that space, it resonates with the presence in them and draws them towards presence. From that space, you can learn to identify where people are at. Okay, well, that's a problem. That is a problem. If I want you to understand me, I have to create a ghost of you. That's the first thing that has to happen. If I'm sitting here, okay, in this experience that I'm having now, and I decide to want you to understand me, well, I have, first of all, that's an emotion that I've conjured up there. Why would I want that? Maybe I think I know better than you. Maybe I think I know more than you. And so I think if you know what I know, you're going to be better off. But actually, what do I know? I'm just here hanging out in the void. To know peace, really, there's nothing to know. It gets back to the learning thing, the unlearning thing. You want them to be something else other than who they are. How mean to make me happy in their presence. Oh, what a horrible expectation to have. To want them to be something other than what they are. Now I say that in a kind of jesting manner because, alright, if you encounter someone who is deeply suffering and miserable, really, actually really deeply upset. They've got tears streaming down their face, they're obviously in distress. Coming into contact with a person like that, there is a part of you that will want to help them because they're suffering. You will want to hug them, you'll want to hold them, you'll want them to smile. You don't want them to be a different person, you just want them to be happy. But I don't know if you've ever hugged someone who was deeply distressed and they just burst into tears, even more. They were in anxiety, they were stressed, and you just brought them into contact and you hold them and they burst into tears. You're not actually demanding that they be anything other than what they are, but you're actually saying to them, be what you are so deeply right now, accept what it is. Come into contact with what you are feeling right now so totally in my arms and just be with it, and it'll be a huge release and a huge relief for that person. Very often they'll burst into tears and their body will tremble and shake, and it will release this problem that they're having, this anxiety that they're having. But all of that occurs in silence. If you were to talk and say to that person, when they're coming into your contact and they're coming into this hug, this embrace, okay, well now I want you to go into this feeling and feel there. If they start trying to process what you're saying, they will leave the feeling that they're having. You'll interrupt it. So coming into contact with, or rather being what you really are, happens in a space of silence. This is why meditation is so important when you really want to connect with yourself deeply. You have to be able to immerse yourself in this silent void because that's where your core is. So if you have to leave your own silent core to see another person and to say and try to get them to be another way now with your words, you've actually lost touch with your own peace of mind to start off with. So, but maybe there is something you have to give them. Kem Jane. Maybe this person is suffering deeply, and maybe you do have some wisdom to give them. But the deepest wisdom to give them is the peace of mind of pure presence. If you have truly connected in yourself with this space of presence and this peace, the flow, if you can maintain that in their company, you're giving them at a subconscious level for them, you are giving them the example that they need to come into contact with, and naturally, in time, their mind will begin to harmonize with your silence because your silence and your peace of mind reigns supreme. But only if it's genuine. Being silent because you're afraid to speak is different. You should be able to speak from this silence with authority, not domination, but with a careful, powerful, cautious, wise authority, undisturbable. I know this silence so well, and so any noise that you bring to the table can't reach me. It doesn't mean I don't love you, because I do. It just means that your noise can't reach my silence. I would suggest, oh, and by the way, when I abide in that silence and I connect very deeply with it, it's so peaceful, so tranquil, my heart rests, my body becomes so relaxed, all of my anxieties settle, or any disturbance that may be harbouring itself in my thoughts, any concerns that I have had, I forget them all, almost instantaneously. And most of them I do forget instantaneously, and if there's anything hovering, any particular trauma or stress that I've encountered over the last few hours, if I abide in that silence for 5 minutes, even that's gone, to the point where I tend to forget my own existence, actually. And so I tend to encourage people when I come into contact with them, because it's so nice in here. It's recommended that you get to know it as well, but you don't have to. Just know that that's where I live. Okay, and so what I'm saying to you here is a kind of example of the mindset that you have when you truly deeply connect with this peace within you. When you find it for yourself, this is the mind that you tend to have when you're in contact with other people, and it goes. So I tend to live in silence, and I abide in the void practically all the time. And when you come to me, my dear, if you come with a lot of noise, the silent part of me that I tend to live in, my deepest core, won't be very connected with you, because it's not touched by all of that chaos. It can't hear the chaos. It's like a separate dimension. So I can enter into this chaos with you and have conversations about it, but there's no end to that, by the way. If your mind tends to live in that dimension of chaos where it's constantly turning with anxiety and stress, it will do that forever if you let it, because there's no end to that. That's called suffering, samsara. Some people call it samsara, the cycle of suffering. And so obviously, if you really, because I tend to live in silence, and that's where my peace is, and that's where I establish my life, that's where I build my life, in silence and peace. And we're having a relationship, and I love you, and I want you to share in this wonderful presence and silence, then we're probably going to have to cultivate that, aren't we, my dear? Because I want to keep you in my life. Also, it's very nice. It's very nice for you. It will be very nice for you. But I'm not going to force you to do it, obviously, because that would be like, I would have to dominate your spirit, you know. You're free. You do whatever you want to do. But you're sort of just letting them know that you have found this place in yourself, and you're very confident, and you're very comfortable, and you don't have to worry. And that's the example people need. If you really want to, you know, if this desire to help the person in their life is coming from love and not ego, if it's coming from ego, it'll be a dominating, controlling thing that will actually cause you misery too. Because that ego can never get what it gets, it can never get what it wants. Anyone, you watch anyone for long enough, they're going to do something eventually that your ego doesn't like. And so it will always, it has to try to maintain control, and it can't always have it. So it gets frustrated. So if your desire to help that person is coming from ego, then you are going to suffer, because you'll never get what you want. And even if you do, it'll be temporary, and then they'll inevitably do something your ego doesn't like. And now you're in chaos again, because they've stepped out of your rules. You know, this is authoritarianism. It's quite relevant in the modern world, actually, that term. But anyway, so what do? We have to come back to our own heart. That's where the love is. By the way, this desire to help is sincere. You've just got to make sure your ego doesn't get a hold of it and then corrupt it. And turn it against you as well as them, and it'll turn it against the whole world. The ego will take love and turn it into a weapon of mass destruction. Shit, I'm probably going to get flagged for a lot of terms in this stream, aren't I? Your ego will take sincere love and turn it into a weapon of mass destruction, and then it'll point it at everybody else on the planet and say, you must subscribe to me. You must subscribe to my way of doing things, otherwise you'll go to hell. Oh, I don't know, whatever. It comes up with all sorts of stupid things. So, what do we do? What's the answer? What's the remedy? I must become so totally at peace in my own heart that I have no more desire to help. I don't want to change the world anymore. In fact, this force in me, this love, will change the world. But how does it do that? It does it by itself. I'm not doing that as my ego now, me here with my power. I'm not doing that. I'm just resting. I'm just resting. And I'm connecting and sharing in the present moment. Anything that comes into contact with me in this present moment, I only want to share, to hang out and share this present moment. I don't want anything else, and my love, from that space, I am deeply in tune with my love, and it's then the love can then flow out of me freely into every relationship I have, and every encounter I have, and everyone I meet. And I abide only in that space. And so that love can change the world. But it's not me as the ego. I'm not in control of that. Do you understand? It's so subtle. And it's a very subtle deviation from that too, which is based off of perception. I have to be careful with my perceptions. If I hover on that person too long with my perceptions, I'm going to start to see things that I don't like, my ego that I don't like, that my ego doesn't like, and then it'll start to kind of like venomously attack those people. So I limit my perceptions of those people. I'm not going to hover on them too long. I don't want to be a dictator. Those beings are totally independent and free. Let them be. Let them be. I'm just going to hang out here in the void. Alright, isn't that good? Never be afraid to hang out in the void. You know the great thing about the void? It's like a great recycler. It's like the void is the home of all healing. Any excess, whether it's excess up or excess down, too much depression or too much anxiety or too much stress or too much anything that's too much excess. I come back to just hovering in the void and hanging out. That it's a great recycler. It recycles all of the excess and brings us right back into a neutral zone, because the void itself is totally neutral. You can't have excess when you're in the void. And so, we'll leave it with hanging out in the void, reconnecting, because it's just you. It's not anyone else. It's not some mysterious otherworldly place that you have to get to. It's just this present moment, right now, without excess. Without adding anything to it, or trying to take anything away. People call it mindfulness, hanging out in the void, being totally present with what's happening. Now I can tell you from my years of hanging out in the void, consciously, intentionally, okay, this void, I want to know it very deeply. So I'm going to train myself to become one with the void. I can tell you now, and don't be ashamed in this because it's part of the process, that it's in your interactions with other people where you will fall, stumble, and get stuck the most, because that's where things get really exciting. As a void dweller, oh, there's amazing and wonderful and unspeakable experiences that happen when you're alone. But from the human part, when you're a human being walking through the world, things get really fun when you're with other people. There's so much to see and learn and do and share. So much love to explore with those people, but that's where things will get real sticky and tricky, because we have psychology to deal with, we have ego to deal with, we have modern society and all of the happenings of the world and 2023 and all the shit that's going down, to talk about and think about and experience. So that's where things get real tricky. So to have a really good human experience, it's wise to know how to put down the human part, because it's real messy in there, falling in love and navigating psychologies and traumas and memories and experiences and wishes and wants and marriages and kids and all that crazy chaos, which can be a lot of fun. Remember, it's all temporary. You're not really a human being, you're just playing the role, you're playing a game. So you have to know, to be wise and to be at peace with this experience, you have to know how to put it all down, drop it. Drop it. Come back to yourself. Alone. Alone in the void. Alright.